let's talk about tier lists.
Okay.
Specifically our tier lists and why people make tier lists and how we make our tier lists. And, why some certain people have problems with tier lists, why some other people enjoy tier lists. Some people consider them useless. Some other people consider them really useful.
I mean, we know the answer to these questions because we have the data.
Yeah, we have the information. So when we talk about tier lists, right? One of the biggest things we can talk about is sure, we're content creators.
Yeah.
We make tier lists because for one thing, we know our audience, a lot of our audience wants that and expects that from us. So we cannot really be not leaning too much into what people say, but even more than what people say, we see the data. We see whenever we do a video on whichever topic, it's doing fine, but whenever there's a tier list out, our audience goes
after a point we kind of have to go with we've had this conversation on stream as well. After a point we kind of have to go with what people kind of like more, because otherwise it would be silly to work in entertainment at the very least.
Yeah, your audience dictates much of the shit you do, right? Especially if you like to make a living out of this. And guess what? It's fun making tier lists, especially the ones that we work on. We'll get to that in a second. Say your piece.
But the thing is, tier list is a minor part of our content. It's content that we work on. We've been working on perfecting the process, but we've worked on this the least out of all of our videos.
Yes, but even that, when we do work on the tier list, there's actually a lot of work and research involved in them. Now, there's there's more types of tier lists that we do, but in general, whenever we have seasons out, we do the meta tier lists, right? All the time, the meta tier list. Now, Flame can go into a lot more detail here, but I can tell you, because I mostly go into them on the edit side of things and just make sure that they look pretty and, cut his babbles and shit. But I know the amount of time he takes to prep everything he's about to talk about, and it's no short of 2 hours at the very minimum, especially when we're doing a big DPS one. If it's all DPS ones, that's a day's work completely just for the research. That's probably going to get recorded the next day. And he makes he takes notes from Warcraft logs, from radio.io, from archon.gg, takes everything that, and he could just print screen those and make a tier list, but no, he cross-references them all. You can get more into it, but
that's because I'm a nerd. And
let's break it down, because I want this video pinned on our channel for all the assholes who have a problem with our tier list. So please let the people know, how does the process work?
It evolved over the years of us doing tier lists, because it also evolved, by the way, because of the feedback that we've gotten for all the tier lists and the criticism that we've gotten, which
we take criticism at heart, if it's argumented.
I think you can probably look at pretty much all the content we've made. You can look at the original tier list back in BFA, and it's a night and day.
It was a Shadowlands.
And at one point, I realized that we will never be able to have a fully 100% relevant tier list, because every ranking, every hierarchy that you make is dependent on one particular criteria to be 100% relevant, because the more criteria you add, the less relevant it is. Because if you add, let's say, we're talking about a DPS tier list, if you add the most amount of damage possible, you can rank all specs based on the most amount of damage possible, but that's not what people use to clear the high defensive, synergy with the group, and all of that kind of stuff, right? So it becomes a layered discussion of what exactly makes a spec S tier, what exactly makes a spec F tier, what's the ranking, what's the meta, and so on and so forth. So the conclusion that we came up with was, okay, I think the best type of ranking that we could possibly do is just look at the data in the way that, okay, what did people actually accomplish the biggest thing with, and how did they get there, right? So if we talk about, let's say, the Exodia team comp in 10.1.5, when augmentation was introduced, in S tier you would always have what? Guardian Druid, Augmentation, Fire Mage, Shadow Priest, Balance Druid, or whatever it was at the time. No, it was a healer. I think it was Holy Paladin, maybe. I don't remember. But either way, you would see those all the time, because those in M+, those would be the specs that would consistently clear the highest of keys across the board, no debate. So that would make them S tier, right? So we thought about, okay, let's just look at the numbers. How many more kills does one spec has of a mythic boss over the other? Like, what's the damage? How popular it is? How likely it is for a mythic team to bring one spec over the other? So we just looked at popularity, breakdown, and overall performance, and try to make it a little bit more universal, so as to be not necessarily more generic, but try to include as much data as possible, but it would be less relevant for each particular topic. So if you look at a tier list for now, for us that we make, it would be less relevant in terms of the overall damage performance that each spec has, but it would be more relevant towards the overarching performance and weight that a spec would have within its group. And that would be the overall best way to look at it. Like, a simple way to say it is, we go on archon.gg, look at the tier list there, and we bring it to ours. But that's not quite it, because we're looking, because that's usually taken from the highest of keys. We're trying to look across the board, trying to look at, that week, those particular tier lists are usually, or ranking are usually made by the latest keys cleared or the latest bosses cleared, so they're not taking into consideration the entirety of the aspects. So we kind of made it our own, and we specified this and disclaimed this a lot in the early tier list, to the point where, like, okay, are we gonna do this every time?
Yeah, we got so tired of disclaiming everything, because like a lot of the reception was, oh my God, you don't know anything about my spec. Why did you rank my spec so bad? Why did you rank this spec so high? People take it so personal, and I feel like at the last like 20 or so tier lists we did on Meta for the last season or whatever, one thing, it's really fun for us as geeks of this game to see how the meta changes and shifts all the time, because you have tuning, you have buffs and nerfs, you have people getting gear, you have people trying different gear. For us, it's very interesting to see that and rank it. So it's really fun as geeks for us. And apart from that, we also make like the highest effort to show the most objective data on the screen, so you can see why the decision was to rank BM Hunter in B tier and Fire Mage or whatever another range DPS in S tier. So we even show the data, and you still get reactions of, you don't know what you're talking about, you placed it wrong. But at the end of the day, we're not placing it by ourselves wrong. It's like, okay, this is the data that we're looking at. Judging by this data, this is how the ranking is made. And for us, it's interesting, because this is another topic of contention. Why do you do tier lists every week? Because when the season starts, it's really cool to see how it evolves. Again, for us as geeks of this game. And it appears that for many other people is something interesting to see. Sure, a lot of folks watch these tier lists and say, oh my God, I'm gonna play this because Flame ranked it S tier or whatever. I know there's people like that. Yeah. But listen, we cannot control that. For us, it's like the most intriguing and most fun part is actually seeing how it evolves. And I feel like Flame got to such an efficient way of like pulling out all the data and looking at it, and it's so cool to see, because you don't see major shifts in the meta, but you do see them. Now, when the season starts, up until like the first month, you constantly see changes, you constantly see shit. After a month, some of the top teams, if it's not like rating or whatever, start experimenting either with comms or with different types of gear or whatever. So that's really cool to see as well. And from out of that, different cool situations occur, and you rank specs differently. Same situation in the rating tier list and so on and so forth. Now, there's the folks that like accuse us that we're misinforming because of this tier list. In the past, we were accused of misinforming people through the guides. Oddly enough, now we're getting accused of misinforming people because of the tier lists. I don't remember when was tier list an educational content, or I think like there's maybe 2 or 3 tier lists out of 100 in the last year or so where we mention play what you love, play the spec that you feel most comfortable with. This is all about the, super high-end players or whatever. This is all interesting to see and how it evolves as a meta. It doesn't have to be your decision of playing this or the other. Now, us saying that in most of the tier lists, will not stop people for just going for that S tier spec and whatever.
It's always going to be a thing.
It's always going to be a thing. Misinforming on what basis, actually? Because what we're doing is basically reading some data, and this is about the meta tier list. We're not even getting into...
Yeah, like, we do fun tier lists, and people are like, but this is not how good this spec is.
Yeah.
Like, that's not... because there's
we're
also the thing that people just skip to the end and look at the ranking, and they just assume the context of the entire tier list. And even if we took the time to like explain, like, this is why we ranked this up, it doesn't matter, because a lot of people are just gonna skip past that and not actually watch the whole tier list. So it's never, and we've realized that like years ago, it's never going to be able to actually put the whole picture out, and it's fine. At the end of the day, if people enjoy it, we do it because people enjoy it, and we like to, look at the numbers as well for ourselves. And I think another issue is that people look at the tiers of the tier list and they assign value to each based on their own.
They're always going to do that.
Their own experience, and that's where the disagreement comes from. So here's the story of that, because we try to kind of match the way that we see each tier to how the community sees it. But at the end of the day, I think it was when some of the seasons where specs were like surprisingly well balanced, where we just had S, A, and B tiers, and every spec just like crammed into like a couple of tiers because they were very well balanced. And I figured that was just boring. Because at the end of the day, if they were like a key apart and they were in the same list, then you would just have like 2 or 3 tiers. So I thought it would be more interesting to have like, okay, the least performing spec is going to be at the bottom, and the most performing spec is going to be at the top, and then try to find a reasonable way of putting everything in between that kind of showcases powers relevant between each other. And I think that's what most people find offensive, because, oh my god, but I clear like the highest of keys with my spec, but it's only B tier, when I mean, we kind of put it out like this, in B tier still clears plus 25s or whatever it was like a season or 2 ago, right?
Yes. This is the thing. Regardless on how much data we show on screen, and regardless how many disclaimers we put in the videos, and how many times we like sound like a broken record and say, listen, this is informative, this is fun to see evolve, this is fun to watch because we're geeks. People are still gonna like make their decision on what to play based on those. And guess what? They do that also when they go onto archon.gg and see all of the rankings there. So it's not like, oh my god, we're like the first ones to do it or whatever. If they're gonna decide their main based on the tier list, they're gonna do it anyways, regardless if you're gonna do it or not, and regardless how many disclaimers and data we show on screen. Now, misinformation. Again, I really have a hard time understanding what's the misinformation when we do these tier lists. Maybe it's like us misinterpreting the data.
I could see that as well, but whenever there's delicate context regarding the data, we try to avoid drawing conclusions based on particular delicacy of the information that we don't have fully grasp on, and that's why we try to keep it a little bit more generalized and universal, and why the tier lists are the way they are. And people can say whatever they want in terms of misinformation. Anybody can unintentionally misinform. I don't know if we're doing that necessarily, considering that we're looking at the numbers. This says 100, this is 99. Obviously, this is
that's
like
what I'm saying
between the two.
You cannot get more objective than that. Again, when the meta, and this still is like, I look in class discords and like people, oh my god, they're always so wrong with their tier list. Like how the fuck can you say that when we're basically looking at data, at numbers? It's like beyond me. Also, there's this question like, how useful is it? Why do people make tier lists? What's the utility of a tier list? And I'm gonna state this again. For us as players and geeks of WoW, we like to look at the numbers. We like to see how the highest players perform and how this meta is shifting and changing. This monster is evolving. We love that. And we put that into our content because we love that. Now, it's very, very good for us that the biggest majority of people watching WoW content on YouTube also loves that. We cannot control people wanting to make a decision on their mains or alts, whatever, based on those, but that's not our purpose. We do those tier lists, but there are about mains and alts, and we specify why we want to main that and why we want to alt that, and people who are familiar with our content know that stuff, and we do actual tier lists for mains and alts. But that's very different. Talking about the meta tier list, now the seasonal changes and all of that. Useful? Yes, they are very useful, because I don't know many other content creators out there actually, there are probably a few, I'm not gonna like disregard it, but just going through the data, analyzing the evolution of any given season, both in Mythic Plus and in Raids, and giving a report. I feel that's a really cool thing for us who are interested in it. And if it vibes with more people out there, it's all for the better. They do tier lists because it's a lot of money. They need that money. They need those clicks. They need that YouTube revenue.
Yeah, that's
a big one.
That's the viewer that I feel like that's the viewer that never actually did any type of content creations.
Or the theory crafter, because I know there's a lot of theory crafters in the class discourse who accuse that.
It's also that, but you know what's funny? I think we've had way more videos that surpassed tier list in the last couple of weeks with topics totally separate from that as well.
Well, it's fine. Listen, we're always going to have like a lot of topics. So we want to make this like clear out, and we're not going to stop doing tier lists because again, this is something we love to do, and we've been doing it for like 4 years now. It has become
the BFA, maybe?
It was pretty much the launch of Shadowlands. It was there. Yeah, we didn't do a tier list for BFA, but regardless. Now, when we do these tier lists regarding hero talents and reworks,
class designs and stuff,
and we talk about and we rank these based on very subjectively, so there's not meta, it's not, sometimes it's numbers because you do look at details, but that's not the deciding factor. The deciding factor, and I think Flame has put that out in all of them, is like how good these classes are redesigned, how good are their hero talents interacting with this redesign, and since we have the tier set bonuses, how do all these three interact with each other and make for a better experience? That's the ranking. Now, even on those, we get accused of misinformation. How the fuck, like, how does that work? Where we basically, it's very subjective, right? And it's based on what we feel it's a very cool design and what Blizzard did in terms of like all of the little jobs they had or the little check marks they had to do to make a class work and give you a good experience overall. Yes, there's also the damage component there, but that's not the biggest factor.
I don't think we've made anything related to anything performance-wise for the War Within.
No, not at all. But you couldn't really do that. Although we could have looked at logs and stuff and make something out of it.
We could have ranked Fire Mage S tier for like 2 weeks straight.
Yeah.
And then just everything else into C and lower.
Yeah. So again, like if we find something really cool, well, specifically Flame here, but we kind of like discuss a lot, like outside of recording and stuff at the office. We talk a lot about the reworks and did you try that spec? Did you see what they did with that and all of that? We bounce a lot of the ideas and we kind of like fall into place on the same thing. So even if it's him like in front of you, like doing the tier list, is basically the kind of like the same idea with what I would say, right? It's very weird to hear people saying that we misinform on those tier lists when it's clearly something that we subjectively look at, and a lot of people also vibe with that. Like, can you accept the fact that, not everybody wants to play like super optimally mathematically, and some people just want to play, casual Joe? We accept those as well.
Enjoy a video game.
Yeah, and like some people are actually interested on if that class is working good. That was like all of our War Within tier list so far, just based on what happened.
And we also did a lot of that content for the beginning of Dragonflight as well. Like whenever the class got reworked, we went into it and this is how it feels. Because at the end of the day, it's a gamer's perspective, right? We're all gamers here, and interacting with a good game is what's keeping us playing that particular game. And how fun is like when you log in and you play your stuff, whether you do a dungeon or a raid, and you pick your talents, whether you copy a build online from a guide or just figure out your own. How much fun are you actually having enjoying or playing that game? Because we know there are a lot of people who don't copy paste builds. They just pick, this sounds great, because we're inspecting talents when we do keys, and it's at the end of the day, it's like if you enjoy it, you enjoy it. But all of that is just pure subjective, and we mentioned that as well. And it's all from the perspective like, dude, does this look like a good game to play? And that's usually what ranks or what decides the ranking of all of it.
Especially on the tier list for the War Within, because it was nothing data driven. Okay. You can talk about maybe us not hitting the mark when we do prediction tier lists.
Oh, but I think that's the point.
That's the point. That's, we're predicting, right? It's like how much, we look, like when we do prediction videos, we usually take the data from the PTR, or in this case, the beta, the data that is available, which the data is skewed as fuck. but that's the data we have.
And you know, and also that's mostly because, and even now, people want to know that stuff, and we kind of preface this like, listen, like so many examples of specs destroying on beta, getting nerfed like a week or so before the live game.
Yes,
and
but that doesn't cut the fact that that spec or class is beautifully designed. If it's gonna be nerfed because of like giga damage, that's expected. But that doesn't take away the fact that it's an absolute love letter to play.
For sure.
You understand what I'm saying? It's because this is the another topic of discussion with the mage, the 10 million mage videos we did, which are actually three videos in 2 months.
But this has never happened, and I think that speaks volumes to how good the mage is designed right now. It was fire mage, and now people are just liking arcane as well, so it's all W's there.
Yeah. Well, another thing here, right? So when we did class guides, and when we do class guides, we usually make sure that the information there is correct, or used to, because we don't do class guides anymore, right? Sometimes when we did some tier lists, I believe we talked with a lot of people from the class discords as well, you know, theory crafters and all of that, you know, consulted with them. So we always tried to involve those people, you know, in this, so we have proper information there. I don't know how many of you know, we also had a podcast called MoCast, where we basically had like all of the theory crafters from the class discourse that answered us in a podcast discussing specs, you know, the evolution of specs, future and whatnot. So we gave our flowers to these people all the time. We are in all of the class discords. We see what these motherfuckers are talking about us. We know. And listen, I think it's a very bitch move to, like, you know, just talk behind our backs. We're there. You can DM us, buddy boy. You can DM Flame, you can DM Marcelian, and we can have a chat about how misinformative our content is, or how irrelevant it is, or how much money we make after this. We are open to discussing. Our DM is open. Anybody can chat with us on any topic regarding our content. But I've seen some pretty harsh words given like pretty freely on both of us in these class discords, and like for some of the people that are doing theory crafting, we have the highest respect, and we worked with most of them. It's sad to see that people we worked with and basically validated some of the guides we did in the past are talking shit about the very guides they validated. So I don't understand how this goes.
And yeah, this happened before, and it's not like everybody's that way. And whenever we
not everybody, but some of them. I'm just saying, man, listen, if you have something to say, you know, we're not gonna try to stop you. I'm all out for criticism and feedback. Just respect one thing, well, two things. Have an argument and invite me or him to a discussion about it. Like, don't be a bitch and, you know, go into a little corner and talk about us, not, you know, thinking that we're not gonna see it. We are everywhere, and if we're not there, we have a lot of people in our community who are like, hey guys, why are this and that Discord guys hating on you? It's like, what? But we had a good relationship with those guys. Well, what happened? Well, it appears that, you know, they don't like an open discussion about topics. As I've said, they prefer to be in the little corner and criticize us without any argument. If you're gonna have an argument, I'm all winning. Like, a lot of like the content we did was based on criticism and so-called negative feedback from our community.
What do you mean? All of it? Yeah, all of the. We
melded that because whenever there was a good, proper, logical argument, we went into that.
We had examples of, because this all started with guides back in the day when we was like, okay, let's actually talk with the people who actually know the best, know all of this stuff. And we got feedback at the beginning, all of them. Over the years, they started to reply a little bit less and less, and, you know, it is what it is. That's fine. And we always made a point, because guides are essentially what we actually consider educational. Like, we don't consider tier lists educational.
No. This is at the very least entertaining for us.
Yeah. So whenever we position ourselves in any kind of authority on education, we always preface this with a couple of things. One, we cater to the average player, like most of us, who are not, you know, min-maxing everything, and that's fine. And we source and reference and shout out even when we don't have like direct collaboration with people. We source and reference like proper guides, advanced stuff, advanced information.
Always.
every single one. We've sent people to the Discords. Like, listen, we try to do our best. Even if it was collaborator or not, we try to like, listen, that's where the information goes. Like, information, although information is free, we're not gonna pretend that we made it up or that we figured it out or that we reinvented the wheel or anything like that. No, we got it from the same place that pretty much everybody else does. And if you want like advanced stuff, you can always find it there. We even recommend, it's like, if you really want to take your game to the next level, that's where you find proper info from the proper brains that do a lot of work for the community, which we always appreciate it, because I don't know if people like Theorycraft and anything like that are getting paid outside of people who are writing for guides, but they're doing a lot of work and a lot of work from their own passion for the game, and that's very, very commendable.
Yeah.
So that's why it was a little bit surprising for us to kind of feel like, well, that was never our vibe. We never put anything out. We never like.
No, so after this experience, because one thing we really hate, both of us, is, you know, not having the balls to like talk mano a mano. You know, just say, listen, dude, your content is bullshit and here is why. Just say it.
We had that happen, and we had to like either take down a couple of guides or redact them in some way.
It was argumented, and it was, you know, when that happened, it was very argumented, and there was reasoning behind it. It's like, yeah, we took the content down.
And I feel like some of those Theorycrafters are some of the most open discussions that we've ever had and keep having to this day.
Yeah. But just to the point, we had like the utmost respect for the Theorycrafters, and we went to so many lengths to like get them more out there, more. Some of them don't really want to be that visible, but they sure do care about the game and want to make sure that the information out there, you know, in the content creation space is relevant, is correct. And again, we made like a whole different channel, a podcast with basically just inviting these guys and gals to, you know, having 2 or 3 hour long discussions about them specs. And you can see here, you know, Windwalker, Preservation, Prot Warrior, Prot Paladin, Frost Decay, Unholy Decay, Warlock, Retribution. This isn't with all of the people, like the major people in those class discords and Theorycrafters, right? Hey, look, we had Frost Mage. Well, yeah, the Mage guys never replied for the podcast, but I remember we had OK Mage there. She made guides as well back then for this, right? So you can clearly see, hey, Christmas special, look at that. So we had, and all of this was in an effort to bring more like the work that these Theorycrafters do on the class discourse, right? So we had the utmost respect for them, right? We still have it, but not for all of them. And this is because talking shit about us and not addressing it directly. I can give some examples, but I think we'll leave it at that because there's no point I'm making. But we have some other Theorycrafters who, like, when we fuck up, and we do fuck up, and we accept we fuck up, but they get into our DMs and tell us, dude, you made this shit video, here's why. This is how it should go. Man, let me know where I was, let me know exactly what the mistake was so I can do better. I mean, I like to treat people I like to treat people that way. I expect the same thing, especially from people we worked with in the past. That's what really like got me a little bit angry, I would say, because we talked with these people before and collaborated on guides, and then we saw, you know, like them talking shit, and dude, why? You know, we have a history of messages between us. Why don't you just say it, like, and, you know, be exact and specific about it? So the truth about these tier lists, like overall, is like there's never going to be an exact tier list, no matter who makes it, no matter which website you look for, because there's always going to be at least 2 or 3 elements that would be so much would have so much of an impact that you couldn't possibly rank it precisely.
Unless you just have everything into A or B tier, and that's just boring.
Yeah.
Every week A, B tier, like nobody wants to see that.
You will see some tier lists with a lot of like specs or whatever in the A tier or B tier or whatever, but we try to not make that happen and make some sort of differentiator between them and show it on screen and disclaim it, so, you know, it's not like this boring ass tier list. Sometimes that doesn't work, because like right now when we did the last one, I don't know which was it, healers or something, but there wasn't any C or D tier. I remember there's like, or maybe there was one C tier.
Might have been a while.
There was a lot of A tiers or whatever. And this is, again, we're looking at what happened with the hero talents and the reworks. Is nothing performance-wise, is whatever. So if subjectively we feel those specs should belong into A tier due to how good Blizzard worked on them and made them feel, That's gonna be it. Is that misinformative?
It's subjective.
It's subjective,
There's
dude.
no misinformation in a subjective approach.
That's what I'm saying. But hold on to your panties, because prediction tier lists are gonna come in very soon. And oh my god, the fun tier lists are gonna come. I cannot wait to see how many people are gonna react to this. Like, oh, you're wrong. No shit.
You shouldn't find that spec fun. You should find this other spec fun. Like, what the fuck?